Well, thanks again to everyone who came out tonight. Again, my name is John Anderson, and I am the Minnesota Program Associate with Solar United Neighbors, or SUN. I'm probably the guy who's been sending you a lot of emails. But yeah, I want to say thanks to everyone for coming to our first meeting of the 2025 Northeast Minnesota Solar Co-op. I am joined by one of our representative, one of our partners, Brett Pence from Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. Brett, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, all. Yeah, thanks, John. Brett Pence. I'm with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. I live and work in Duluth. I'm our Northern Minnesota staff person. And one of the things I get to do is help people find their way through practical projects, including renewable energy. So solar is, of course, right up there. And Sun has been a fantastic partner the last few years. So we're really happy to help promote their program and be a partner in this region. So great to see folks on the call. And yeah, hi, Lori, and hi, Claire. Nice to see you all. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Yeah, well, I'm going to share my screen and get started here. So can everyone see that? Feel free to tell Brett in the chat if you can't. But great. Yeah. So again, welcome to this meeting of our Solar 101, as we like to call them, of the Northeast Minnesota Solar Co-op from Solar United Neighbors. Just a few quick housekeeping things. If you have, if you're planning on asking any questions, just make sure you figure out the microphone and speakers and that sort of thing for audio, although we're going to keep the Q&A till the end. And then you can also feel free to submit your questions in the chat, and you can send that either to me and Brett, the panelists, or to everyone, whichever you prefer. And then just as a quick reminder, we are recording this webinar, and I will be sharing a link of the recording with everyone who RSVP'd after the event. So I want to, first of all, get started by just saying thank you so much to our local partners. We really couldn't do this work without their help. So, of course, Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light has been one. We've also had a lot of support from the Cook County Local Energy Project in Cook County, Minnesota, and also have working with the Iron Range Partnership for Sustainability, the Minnesota Renewable Energy Society, and One Roof Community Housing in Duluth. So, what is Solar United Neighbors? Well, we are a vendor-neutral national 501c3 nonprofit. And what do we do? Well, as we like to put it, we help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. Just a brief overview of our national impact. And here's a lot of photos of some of our work from around the country. We've helped around over 10,000 families go solar so far. That adds up to about 96 megawatts of solar capacity and about 1.2 plus million tons of CO2 saved from being released into the atmosphere. We also, I should say, we currently work in 12 states and the District of Columbia and also Puerto Rico. And here's a brief overview of our impact in Minnesota. We've helped about 317 families go solar, which adds up to about 2.4 megawatts, which is $7.8 million invested in the local economy. We calculate that at about $12 million in energy savings for folks in this sort of 25-year period, as well as a number of jobs created and metric tons of CO2 offset. So here's the story about how Sun gets started. It goes back all the way back to 2007, and that's our founder and our executive director, Anya, there in the black T-shirt with the sunglasses on. And basically back then, Walter, who's on the left there, her son, went and saw the movie An Inconvenient Truth, which I think folks might be familiar with his buddy Diego over there on the right. And they're really inspired by the film. And when Walter got home, he said, "Mom, we have to go solar. We have to go solar." So Anya decided to start looking into it. This was back in 2007, and she found out that the process was not easy. It was actually quite difficult. She heard different things from, and she lives in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood of Washington, D.C. So she heard different things from the District of Columbia government, from the local utility, from different things from different installers, and it was quite frankly not an easy task to do. So she decided to sort of decided to sort of find more people to help out, basically, and sort of went door to door with Walter in her neighborhood, Mount Pleasant, and just wanted to see if her neighbors were interested in going solar as well. And there was a lot of interest in the neighborhood. She ended up finding around 50 people who were interested in doing it. And uh, uh, Once they were able to do that, find those sort of 50 people, they were able to sort of work together to try and get through the process as a group rather than just on their own. And it took 2 years, but they ended up helping around 47 families in Mount Pleasant go solar. And when the news of this got out, she started getting calls first from other parts of the District of Columbia. People be like, "Oh, I want to do this too. Can I be part of the group?" And then started getting calls from Virginia and Maryland and even states farther away of people who were really interested in this. So she really sort of realized that she had sort of hit on a sort of a model of how to help people go solar, and that's sort of where things got started from. This is just a brief overview of our theory of change, as we see it as sort of a cycle that keeps going round and round. We help people go solar with new and existing systems. Through the process of going solar, we help people join together with things like online and in-person events, and also providing resources for folks. And then help to try and help people sort of fight for their energy rights on things like net metering policy at the state level, down to local issues dealing with a homeowners association as well. And our whole theory of change is based on the idea that we should really be working to build a newer and fairer energy system for the 21st century, rather than simply building out the old system that we sort of inherited from the 20th century. Um, and this sort of goes into my next point, which is a really important point about working for equity. Um, uh, I just want to take a moment to talk about this because, like I said, the old electrical system that we've sort of inherited from the 20th century has some real issues with it. Basically, certain communities in the U.S. Disproportionately share the costs of energy production, or what sometimes economists like to call negative externalities. So those can be things like environmental degradation in coal country in Appalachia. That can be worse air quality issues in certain urban neighborhoods, or places like Cancer Alley in Louisiana. And one of the unfortunate things is those communities that bear these disproportionate costs from our energy system also tend to pay higher prices for their energy, including their electricity, and also have less reliable service. And families of color are disproportionately harmed by this, by things like higher utility bills, more frequent shutoffs or blackouts. And on top of that, housing discrimination can also be a barrier to going solar as well. So we really believe in rooftop solar at the community level because it's a way to let communities invest locally, create a good paying local jobs, and bring control of the energy system within our reach. And that's really why we're working towards a new energy system that's fairer for everyone involved. So just to go over what I'm going to be covering today, I'm going to do a review of solar technology and sort of then talk a little bit about the economics of solar, and then finally how a solar co-op works. So just to review solar technology, here's a picture of a solar panel, or what we call photovoltaic or PV technology. That's pretty much the way it works is it converts the energy of light that comes from the sun in the form of photons through a solar cell, which turns those photons into a stream of electrons, which is basically all electricity is a stream of electrons. It creates this electricity, again, through these individual cells. This comes out in the form of DC, or direct current. That's the type of electricity that you would get from, say, a car battery. That electricity then goes into an inverter that turns it into AC, or alternating current, which is the type of electricity that you use in your home to power your appliances and that sort of thing. And then any sort of excess that you might be generating with a solar array, you can put back onto the grid. And the majority of today's solar technology is this sort of PV technology. There are other ways of using solar technology to like do things like heat water or heat a pool, but we don't really work in that field, but it does exist. I'm just going to talk briefly about the important terminology. This is, if you're not already aware of this. First, when we talk about a solar array, that is the panels that, again, generate electricity from the energy that comes from the sun. That electricity goes in then into number two, which is an inverter that turns that energy into, again, that AC or alternating current, which can then be used by the appliances in your home. And in order to do that, it has to go through your electrical panel, which you have in your home. Um, and then any excess can go out through the utility meter to be used by your neighbors in your community. And the way that utility works is it's sort of a two-way tracker. So say at night, when your solar panel obviously isn't generating electricity, it will record the amount of electricity that your home is taking in from the grid. And then, maybe if it's a nice sunny day, and you don't have the AC on, you have the windows open, it will be tracking all the electricity that you're generating and putting back onto the grid. Just to talk a little bit about the system components of solar panels themselves. Just to go over the terminology, just a little briefly. Solar cells are, again, those individual little things that turn sunlight into electricity. And a bunch of those cells makes up a panel, and a bunch of those panels make up what we call an array, which would be all the panels in the self-contained system. They're a bit like a sort of multi-layered sandwich there. The solar cells in the middle are what generate the electricity, and they're surrounded by the glass, the encapsulant, and the frame to protect those solar cells. And a solar panel is typically comprised of maybe 60 to 72 individual solar cells per panel. They're fairly large in size, about 6 feet by 3.5 feet, or the size of a full-size American flag. And again, there's a bunch of cells in each panel and more than one panel in an array. And now I'm just going to go over a little more important terminology. This might remind you of your, I don't know, your high school physics class or maybe science class in middle school. But again, just to review, a watt is a unit of power that measures the rate at which electricity is consumed. So if you think of a 60-watt light bulb, when you turn it on, it's using 60 watts of power. A kilowatt is just 1,000 watts. And a kilowatt hour is the use of that power of 1,000 watts over the time frame of an hour. So let's say you want to make your backyard really, really bright and you got 160-watt light bulbs and you hooked them all up and you turned them on. That would be using 6 kilowatts of power. And if you left it on for an hour, that would be 6 kilowatt hours. If you left it on for 2, it would be 12, et cetera, et cetera. And this just also just sort of gives you an overview of sort of roughly what the size of a typical array is. Again, it's fairly big. And this would be a 6 to 7 kilowatts size array, which is maybe a good array for maybe a slightly smaller than average sized home. Or wait, that's the average size. This size is more like 4.2, which is a fairly smaller array. Then I'm just going to talk briefly about the system components. So racking is the way that you attach the solar panels to a roof. This is a pretty standard racking right here, connecting the panels to a asphalt shingle angled roof. And there, are a number of different ways to do this racking, and there's pretty much always a solution for all sorts of different roofs. Here's some examples. With again, with asphalt shingles, it connects directly to the wooden beam under the roof with flashing around it to make sure water doesn't get in. If you have a flat roof, they can use a ballast system, which is use a weight of like concrete blocks to keep it on there. You also see some things like clamps and some other ways here, and that can work on like a metal roof if you have one of those. The big thing to remember is just the installer that you'll be working with will be able to find the best solution for your particular situation. Yeah. So here's an example. This would be a more flatter standing seam metal roof, and it's sort of attached with a system of clamps hooking on to it. A little different than the asphalt shingle system. And then another system that can be used is you can do a ground mounted array, and that's where the solar panels, instead of being on the roof, they're on a sort of metal scaffold that goes into the ground. That tends to cost a little more, but again, you can have a bigger array. It's not contained by the size of your roof, and also you can angle it directly at the sun, where sometimes your roof might not be optimally facing it. So I'm just going to talk briefly about those inverters. Again, this is what converts that DC power from the panel to AC power you can use. And there's a number of different technologies here. The big thing to remember is that the installer that you'll be working with will be able to find the solution that works best for your situation. So here's an example. This is a central string inverter, and that's if you have say a roof that's facing directly south, it gets no shade, there's no trees around it. This would be a good option because, and it's just sort of hooked up all in a string like that, like a row of Christmas lights. And that's good if like all the panels are generating the same amount of electricity at the same time. Here's some examples of different systems. For instance, you might use microinverters if maybe you have a roof that sometimes has shade, maybe in the morning or in the afternoon, but other times doesn't. And so the panels are generating different amounts of electricity at different times. You would have a system of them each having their own much smaller inverter, and then that directly being turned into that AC electricity. But the big thing to remember is just, people's situations are different, but the installer will work with you to find the solution that's best for you. So just to talk briefly about electrical panels, you may need a new electrical panel if all your spots are sort of filled up, or you have an older screw-in style of fuse box. My parents had that because I grew up in an old house. I don't know. I think in the Duluth area, you might still have some of those. But most homes built after I think around 1970 will usually have the sort of modern panel that won't need to be replaced. But so if you do need that, that'll be an additional cost. But it's also as it's also susceptible to the incentives and the tax rebates, like everything else in the system. So just to go over sort of what a good roof is for solar. Excuse me. The ideal roof orientation that you're looking for is something that faces, directly true south, with no shade. That's sort of ideal. If it faces east or west, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. It can still generate, oftentimes around 80% of what it might be generating if it faces due south, but it won't be it won't generate as much. And then, generally speaking, if it faces north, we wouldn't recommend doing that because it just won't generate enough electricity to make it economically make sense. Shading can also be an issue if you have a ton of trees around your house. That can make it also not make sense. Just something to keep in mind. A really important thing too is the condition and the age of your roof. We say that at a minimum, the roof should have at least 10 years of life left in it. And the reason for that is if you need a new roof and you have solar panels on it, that can be kind of a hassle. It can be done, but it'll cost you more to replace that roof. And so we would tell people that at a minimum you want your roof to have as much life left in it as it would take for the system to pay for itself, which in Minnesota is usually between 10 and 15 years. So, what is net metering? I talked about this a little bit before, but net metering is a policy here in the state of Minnesota. We passed the first net metering law in the country in 1989. And basically, it's a law that says that if you're generating through your solar panels more electricity than you're using, you have the right to put it back on the grid where it'll be used by whatever your closest neighbor is who's drawing power from the grid. And in exchange for providing that electricity, you'll get a credit back from your utility. And then over time, that credit can sort of even out, or over time, you can either get paid if you're generating more than you use, or what you generate will go to reduce the amount of your electrical bill. So just to give a quick example here, if you use, here's what an example electrical bill might look like. You use 300 kilowatts in say a month, but you exported 200, so you just have to pay a bill for 100. I'm going to talk now briefly just about batteries. So, what happens when the power goes out? Well, the way solar panels are built is that when the grid goes down, the solar panels automatically turn off generating electricity. And the reason for that is when the grid goes down, the line workers from the utility are going to be out there, trying to fix it. And it would be too dangerous to just be putting electricity back onto the grid. They might get shocked or something like that. So that's automatic. The system is designed to automatically turn off. So if you want to be able to still have power during a power outage, you need to have a battery system. The value of a battery system is that you might want it if you live in a place with frequent utility outages. You have critical loads at home, like a well pump or medical equipment, or you just want to be prepared for, all contingencies, that sort of thing. The big thing to remember about batteries is that they do provide backup power for you, but you cannot use the electricity stored in your battery. You can't sell it back, or you can't put it back onto the grid like with net metering. You can't get paid for that, as it were. The way the law is written right now, that battery power is just for you to use. So here's an example of a battery system with the Johnsons, just because they happen to live in a place where they have a blackout several times a year. Um, and so they have about a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery bank, um, and which generally says if the power goes down, they have about a day of power. And it's important to remember that a battery system does provide power, but it's not the same as being just on the grid. So you can run stuff like a fridge, a microwave, maybe a cable modem, a few lights, that sort of thing. But you can't use it to do laundry, have an electric stove, turn on a giant table saw in your basement, something like that. That doesn't really work because that would drain it just really really fast. It's just for that sort of small usage type of stuff. Here's an example of battery costs for about an 8 kilowatt solar array that's around about average of the size you see in Minnesota. To add that again, day long power battery system would be an extra sort of $12,000. And if you want to learn more about this, we have a great website just on solarunitedneighbors.org slash storage. Um, oh, yeah. And then here's that battery storage guide if you're interested. So just to go over some frequently asked questions, do the panels come with warranties? Yes, they come with two types of warranties. The first one is a production warranty, and that covers the amount of electricity that the panel should be continuing to produce over its lifespan. So most of these panels will have a production warranty between 20 or 25 years, and will say that it should still be producing between, say, 80% to 87% of what it started producing when it was turned on day one, even after those 20 25 years. If it goes below that before then, the warranty can cover the cost of replacing that panel. And then we'll usually have a product warranty that'll usually have sometimes not as long of a warranty, but that will cover any sort of defects or problems with a panel in the manufacturing process that had happened there. With homeowners insurance, that's a must. You have to have that if you want to go solar. Maintenance, very little. They're actually designed for the snow to sort of automatically or naturally just melt and sort of slide right off. Maybe once in a while you might want to wash them, and then all you got to really do is just spray them with water and maybe use like a towel, that sort of thing. You don't have to scrub them or anything like that. And because they have pretty much no moving parts, they last for a really long time. You get 20 to 25 years, they're still producing 80% of what they once were, and don't require sort of regular maintenance or anything like that. If you will your HOA allow solar? Yes, they're required to. Solar United Neighbors worked hard with some other groups to get the legislature to change the law that says your HOA cannot prevent you from putting in solar as long as you follow some basic guidelines. But if you live in a historic district, I don't know if that applies to anyone here, that can be a little trickier because those rules can be a little different. But I'm happy to help with anyone, at some future point if you had issues around that and wanted help. I'm always here for that. And I'm just going to talk briefly about solar economics. Um, Solar is a great investment. Here's a graph that sort of shows how the cost of solar panels has gone down significantly since people first started really talking about them in the 1970s, and they've dropped a huge amount, 73% since 2010. This is no longer a specialty or a boutique project, and it's has excellent return on investment. And of course, there's the 30% federal tax credit, which I'll get into in just a little bit as well. Um, Here's an example that we put together, a hypothetical example of what things might look like. Say if you got a 6.9 kilowatt system at $3.20 a watt, they come out to about $22,000. You minus the 30% federal income tax credit, your net cost is going to be about $15,450. But then if you look at it, you'll be saving a significant amount of electricity each year. So the array will sort of pay for itself. This is up to 10 years, but just to add that up, it'd probably pay for itself about 12 to 13 years. And again, this is just a hypothetical example, but here's what some systems might look like. And I'm just going to talk briefly about solar incentives. So again, there's that federal tax credit, which is 30% of the federal tax credit. And so it's non-refundable, so you can't get a check back at the end of the year. But the good news is you can roll it over from year to year if you don't have a tax burden high enough for that to be totally used in that first year. And then, as you can see, this is the current law as it stands, is that 30%. And then it's right now, the way the federal law is written, it'll start phasing out in 2033 and 2034. There's also a question of can I get a loan to finance that? And yes, you can often either go through the installer or you can always research on your own. You can also use things like home equity lines of credit. We'll often have ways of refinancing that include solar. And you can also look at credit unions as well. We have a good thing on our website, which is solarunitedneighbors.org/financing that sort of goes through that. Here's some more examples of some resources. The Center for Energy and the Environment, which is based in St. Paul, is a good organization. They have their own lending center that specializes in helping folks go solar. So that's a great place to check out if you're interested in looking into loans. Also, there's a number of credit unions that specialize in this as well. There's a few right there on the slide as well. And then also typically you can get a solar loan program through the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency as well, which is a state agency. Finally, I'm just going to talk briefly about grants and incentives. There are a number of grants and special incentives for farmers and small businesses. So there's one is called the Rural Energy for America program, or REAP, and that can cover up to 25% of the cost of solar projects. There's also things like a few more on here through the Department of Ag, which can do loans as well, and accelerated depreciation, or the Marks program. So now I'm just going to talk briefly about how solar co-ops work. So why should you join a solar co-op? Great question. Well, I would say that the reason I would encourage you to join the Northeast Minnesota Solar Co-op is I think we have the ability to give you the best value on your installation. I think we also have the ability to give you support throughout the process. And also, it's a great way to connect with fellow solar enthusiasts in your area and also become part of a growing solar movement. One of the reasons that solar co-ops can give you a good price is if you look, this is a graph that sort of looks at just the economics of for a solar installer company. And one of the real realities is that the components have gotten much cheaper as the technology has gotten better and that sort of thing. And the labor costs on average have gone down a little bit as people have gotten better at sort of doing the actual installation, and there's a more experienced labor force and that sort of thing. But the soft costs of running an installation business still remains quite big. And one of the biggest of those soft costs is marketing. Again, if you think about it as an installer company, you're looking for a specific subset of customers of people who are interested in going solar. And as a result, solar installers often spend a lot of money on things like online ads. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, or direct mail, or even billboards. We have a lot of those here in the Twin Cities for some reason right now. But the whole point is, if you can go to an installer and say, we have a group of 75 people or whatever the number is, and they're all really interested in going solar, and we'd like to negotiate a sort of group-wide deal. Because they don't have to spend money on those marketing costs and those sorts of things, you can usually get a pretty good rate compared to if you just did it on your own. The way the solar co-op, this is a timeline to sort of the solar co-op process. Right now, we're in the first part on the left, where we are just trying to get the word out about the co-op and see if folks are interested. So if you are interested, I'd really encourage you to sign up online as a member. I should say that it's 100% free to sign up, and there's absolutely no obligation or anything like that if you do sign up. Any sort of contract you'd sign if you do decide to go solar, you'd sign that with the installer themselves. And Sun is just here to sort of help facilitate the process. And I'd also really encourage you to help us spread the word. We have found at Sun that one of the most effective ways of getting folks to get involved in a solar co-op is word of mouth. People really do trust their neighbors, their friends, the people they know in their community. So if you are interested, or if you know of anyone that you think might be interested in this opportunity, we'd really encourage you to let them know and check out the website and possibly sign up. We're in that first sort of 2-month period. Towards the end of April, we're gonna put out a request for proposal, or RFP, that sort of says, we have a certain number of members. These are the requirements of that we would want for the proposal, and we'll give that out to our list of installers in the state, and pretty much anyone who's interested can sort of submit a bid. We then have a process in which a selection committee, which is composed of volunteers from the co-op who have signed up to do that, will then go through the bids and sort of select the installer they want. And then there'll be a deadline, which is going to be at the end of June, which is sort of the last chance for folks to join. And then everyone in the co-op who signed up will get a specific proposal from the installer that's designed for your specific situation. You can decide if you want to sign that contract or not. And then we'll have the installation will probably start, going throughout the summer. And then hopefully at some point, probably in the fall, we'll have a celebration, hopefully for folks to sort of meet each other and talk about how it went. Yeah, so here's the timeline. Like I said, we're going to put the RFP out at the end of April. There'll be a few weeks for installers to fill that out, and then the selection committee is going to meet at the end of May, and the co-op will be open through the end of June. So what's next? I would encourage you, if you're interested, to join the co-op. We'd love to have you. And please, again, tell your friends and neighbors if you're interested. That word of mouth is always very helpful. And thank you so much for taking the time to come out on this Thursday evening. Here is my contact info. If you have any questions or would like to chat, I'm very much here for you. So feel free to reach out and send me an email. And I'd love to